Welcome back to my channel. Hope you guys are excited for another Hunter x Hunter video, because this will be the follow-up to the speed section. If you haven't seen that video, I'd advise going and check that out, because we've got some crazy numbers there that are totally backed purely on panel by Feats. We don't have to go by statements. Netero is a monster. Go check it out. However, now on this video we'll be talking about the AP side. And so the question is, just how potent is Hunter x Hunter? Are they more based on high AoE, large destruction, or do we get some real feats that suggest amazing potency within their attacks? And for myself, how do they stack up against Togashi's other work at Yu Hakusho? Now again that speed has been covered, let's look at some AP feats and answer those questions. Like usual, I'm going to try and start with the weakest, of which we'll be using someone who's become somewhat of a benchmark for where feats begin to become impressive, aka Uvo. And it's this feat here, where he craters in this enormous amount of ground, one-handed and in a bad position no less. It's very impressive, so let's look at the numbers. Well, to do that we need to consider something. What's more accurate? See, the depth of the crater in the shot with him, but at like a terrible angle to get a correct height on. Consider he's over 2.5 meters tall, by the way. You know, are we basing the depth of it based on his height with that angle? Or should we simply take the crater as a half sphere with perfect proportions? See, it's a tough call given the latter uses an assumption, just, oh, it's so convenient, just use perfect proportions, a perfect half sphere, right? But it fits visually, while the former requires guesswork in trying to apply his height correctly at all, where if you mess up the numbers on his height, pixel or otherwise, however you want to go about it, you can get vastly incorrect numbers there. So you have to be very careful if you're not taking the proportion like a perfect half sphere. And yet, the perfect half sphere is assumptuous to begin with. So which one is better? Well, I took a shot at both. And if you go by his own height, coming in at 258 centimeters, you can expect the crater depth to be around 601.14 centimeters and a diameter of 1,496.4 centimeters, and the total volume of ground to be about this many cubic centimeters. And that's not bad. But if we then assume the perfect half sphere, we'd find instead a volume of around this many cubic centimeters based on Uvo in the shot directly standing in the crater itself. This makes it smaller, but not by much, so that's a pretty good thing. And you have to realize, of course, again, either way, Uvo is over 2.5 meters tall, so it really shows in the crater feat just how deep it goes. Taking the lower end for consistency, meaning the perfect half sphere, what we're looking at is around this many total joules, and given his hand size in AP of around this many joules per centimeter cubed, his hand is rather large, but it's still just his hand. He is still human proportion wise. So this puts his total energy at lower mid city block level, and his AP at mid-end small building level joules per centimeter cubed. Now, what's so funny about this scaling is that we have vastly superior feats in terms of total joules that actually lose to Uvo in potency. Consider Bonolov's Jupiter attack. That crater far surpasses Uvo's attack, but its total volume is also extremely larger. In just feats alone, I'd fully expect Uvo to just punch Bonolov's attack and destroy it no problem. But that also goes into the fact that they scale relative. What if they don't scale relative, you know, like at all to each other? What if I show you this? Now we're all the way to Yuppie, someone who is vastly above Uvo in every conceivable way, but that's in scaling. Let's really look at what these feats tell us. See, Uvo with the hand size at least somewhat reasonable to normal human hand sizes, like I've said, versus Yuppie's. I mean, look at the difference. His hands are enormous. Even when destroying the stairs, his hands are at least 4 meters in diameter minimum. but at a total volume of this many cubic centimeters. His hands are around over 12,902 times larger than Uvo's. So him causing the amount more destruction he is, it's like, I mean, no duh. Look how many more times bigger his hands are, so it would require far less potency to have done it. So that said, when we're comparing the feats of, Uvo versus Yuppie, we're taking Yuppie's hands to be at like the largest size we can, but it's so that, like always, we can find guarantees. And so when we compare the two feats, we have Yuppie's crater as an astounding 263 times larger than Uvo's, but requiring, again, around 12,903 times more AoE to do so. And actually puts Yuppie's AP lower than Uvo's by a large degree. But, of course, that can't be right. Yeah? Because of course Uvo is weaker than Yuppie. And, by the way, even using the lower volume of his hands, like, to make it so that it's more compact and more potent, it's still not better than Uvo's. This is the point about scaling. It's always about feats and scaling. Goku didn't destroy a planet, so he's not planet level. People have thrown logic like that at me. It's like, well, based on your logic, if Goku hasn't destroyed a planet, then you're saying he's not planet level because you need feats. No. Goku has matched people who have effortlessly destroyed planets. He scales above them, and we can use a general scale for minimum, say with Super Saiyan multipliers, what have you, to say that Goku is X times more powerful than planet busting. Because, shoot, even Roshi, like, I'm not going down the DBZ thing, just, look. This is the point of scaling. Yuppie scales way above Uvo, but his feats actually in of themselves don't calc to be more impressive than Uvo's in potency. Alright? And, of course, it's not as if him cratering the ground like he did is Yuppie's best feat. His best feat is where he swells up to an extreme size, but proceeds to vaporize a large quantity of the ground. And you can compare the explosion size to also get an idea of the crater size that he made from vaporization compared to the already known size of his last crater. You can see them like pretty comparative, like the explosion size there, the crater he makes. We have the full like zoomed out scan where we can see the crater that he had done previous. And it's with this that we find he's hitting with a total force at minimum of around this many total joules, or mid-end small city level. Very impressive, but however, his AoE involved is massive, and the AP is actually only proving this many joules per centimeter cubed, or mid-end small building joules per centimeter cubed. Just slightly more potent than Dai's air pressure slash at the very beginning, remember that calc, but also nearly only half the potency behind Uvo's punch. Insane. I mean, when you really consider it, I can't believe its potency is still calking out to only like as much as rather half of Uvo's potency when you consider the volume difference of Yuppie's entire body there versus Uvo's just his hand. Like, how many of Uvo's hands would fit within Yuppie's body to compare the total energy yields that they both are putting out? It really is insane. And it's insane to consider still that Uvo has the best feat shown so far when we're factoring in potency, and that, again, this was also the point in past feats I've shown, such as like Ten Tails Biju Bomb, where the AoE just matters so much and you can't just arbitrarily put AP as what you want. In cases like Ten Tails Biju Bomb, or here with Yuppie's feats, it's a matter of them scaling above feats of others and using the AP of those feats with the scaling. This would even apply to Netero's Zero Hand, given its AoE to the destruction it caused, because it did vaporization. But let's get into the scaling where we can see what we want. Some real AP then. Let's talk about the best of the best, the Rose Bomb, and Miriam's Rage Blast that came after, because this is the true height of Hunter x Hunter and the AP that they have to offer. Starting off, the Rose Bomb, based just on its fireball size alone, and the amount of people it's said to kill, But don't even need that, really. Just we get to see the fireball size. We're looking at lower small city levels at minimum. Based on its extreme volume to destruction, the AP is very low in calcing, and I'm sure a lot of the destruction was via simply the air pressure and such, which would make the AP vastly higher, of course, but it's just too hard to find what the actual AP would have been. Still, small city level total joules isn't bad, but the real crux of nukes is the heat, aka the heat of 100 million degrees Celsius, because that's the heat Merriam took point blank. It is vaporization. That's the important factor in this with the rose bomb. Yes, he took the force, but this man also took the heat, and in looking at the damage his body sustained, it was more so the heat that actually brought him to nigh death. At the point of destruction there, like at the point of his nigh death, at that point, that was from heat. I mean, the force removed certain amounts of his body, yeah, but the vast majority of him is still intact. Like, what percentage of his body do you think is actually missing from the force blowing it off? And is any of that portion of his body, like, necessary to his survival? Because all of him is burnt to the degree it is. The other point in showing this is to show consistency in what is vaporization, as that is far different from something like cratering or otherwise. I mean, consider cratering can be something like 87 joules per centimeter cubed. Vaporization is often around 25,700 joules per centimeter cubed. See, nukes, of course, involving their vaporization and leaving vapor behind from that very vaporization. The question is vaporization a constant in Hunter x Hunter at this level of power? Well, I mean, considering Yuppie's amazing feat with the clear vapor that even continues on far after the feat has occurred. The clear vaporization evident in this zero hand feat, and even this own feat here in the extremely clear vapor. Think we could expect such things in coming feats? Say Miriam's Rage Blast? Because I've got to say, see, many before have taken Miriam's Rage Blast as something other than vaporization. I don't understand why. I don't know how. Because it's consistently shown to be something else. And I'm certainly taking it as vaporization myself. This is, close to how I did with the Okunin trees in Yu Yu Hakusho. There's like 8 different scans that show the size and things that they're at minimum larger than being vastly larger, so massive compared to like an average mountain. And then you have 1.5 scans that show that maybe they're bigger than a mountain, but not by that much. And it's like this, it's like we have so many cases of vaporization showing, Togashi even made it clear in Yu Yu Hakusho with other things where we saw, like air pressure. With Sensui's air pressure of his punch, people was like, maybe that's his energy. No, the hell it's not. Based on consistency, you gotta be as accurate and consistent as possible. The air pressure of Karasu's bombs to Sensui's air punch. Yusuke did his punch in front of that boxer guy. Like, it's consistently shown. We get to see what air pressure looks like. And he also makes it consistent when we're looking at vaporization. I'm taking his Rage Blast as vaporization. Again, just look at all the consistency here. You can see the scans. So, like we've been exploring, how big is this blast? Well, because we need the AoE for the AP, that comes in at a range of around 33 meters to 37 meters in diameter, based on different scans of Hakuware and his size, usually compared to Gon. Hakuware would be APR, the, Knuckles' ability there. I'll be taking the lower end, of course, as a minimum, and as such can scale the sizes of the plateau and get a volume of destruction equal to around this many cubic centimeters. Given vaporization of rock is again 25,700 joules per centimeter cubed, put 2 and 2 together and we're looking at this many total joules, or high-end mountain total joules. Getting decently close in the grand scheme of things to island level. To give you an idea, we're a little more than 20% of the way to full-out island level total force. To find the AP, however, we need the volume of the attack. and that comes in at a volume of around this many cubic centimeters, putting the AP at this many joules per centimeter cubed, or mid-end small building joules per centimeter cubed. Dang, like, due to the overwhelming volume of that attack in calcing, even this comes out to weaker in potency than Uvo's feat. That hurts to say, but it's just, I can only tell you what the calcs show. However, what's funny about this calc is that it goes off multiple scans to try and find consistent sizes of people, i.e. Hakaware and Gon. Hakaware, who changes in size, no less. But we never use Merriam himself, the guy actually doing the feat. We can see directly in the feat that as Merriam fires off the blast, that at minimum, the beginning of the blast, where it's like kind of reaching out with, like it's not the beam portion, just the very beginning, is larger than the beam in proportions, like in height, width, or not width, but height and length, right? It's larger than the beam in proportion, and becomes where the beam itself then becomes a sphere later. And yet, that beginning section, being so much larger than what becomes the beam, isn't that much larger than Merriam himself. Merriam is just under 2 meters tall. If we simply use the panel showing the blast compared to the person actually shooting it, we're looking at a much more compact and smaller blast of around this many centimeters cubed. Just really consider Merriam's size to that blast, including even the initial part of it that is 100% larger than the attack. Because with these sizes, the AP would instead be around this many joules per centimeter cubed, or we're talking high-end large building level. We're getting nearly to city block AP, city block joules of force in every cubic centimeter of space. That's much more potent, even more consistent with the scaling as well, such as quantifiably being at least 108 times more potent than Uvo's Big Bang Impact. I know joules per centimeter cubed always makes things sound smaller, I've said this before, but I truly hope you all that are listening realize how big having over 2 magnitudes worth of more energy output per centimeter cubed of space making up an attack is when you compare them, how much that's worth. I can't stress enough how insane it is when comparing on a cubic centimeter's volume of space. It's a lot, it's an insane degree. So, it's almost like this. When I'm talking about joules per centimeter cubed and I'm, comparing them and it all sounds smaller, it's almost in the way if you look at, like, magnitudes worth. This is, the joules equal to 4 times 10 to the 10th power. Okay. Is that impressive? Well, this other attack is 4 times 10 to the 13th power. Well, if you don't know what exponentials are, you're just gonna see a to the 10th power to versus a time, to the 13th power, and it's like, okay, so that's a difference of 3? It's like, no. 3 magnitudes. Like, when there's only a difference of a 3 when you're talking about exponents written that way, and that's kind of what's happening with the joules per centimeter cubed, but really that's 1,000 times multiplier difference. So it's not exactly the same thing in terms of like how either way functions in terms of understanding the potency joules per centimeter cubed versus that. The only link I'm trying to say there is that the way it's written can come off so it seems less impressive. Joules per centimeter cubed will sound less impressive, but I can't stress enough it's just for consistency and accuracy in comparing all verses and all feats. But again, this is very impressive to be having this number here in joules per centimeter cubed. That is very high AP. So, with that spiel out of the way, the verse tops out at mountain plus level total force and that large building plus AP. Of course, we've covered speed in the other video, with speeds ranging from Mach 30 to 60 for movement speed, and other things, except for combat speed, where Netero's Budvista having combat speed equal to Mach 298 plus. What does this look like when compared directly to his other series, Yu Hakusho? Well, for AP, we'd have to look at false 20% of Toguro, who could output more force than Suzaku with a simple punch than Suzaku could with his lightning, while someone like Byakuo, who is trash to Suzaku, was already outputting city block level total force and pretty decent AP. It was about small building level AP already from Byakuo. And he again was leagues below Suzaku. Leagues, that's kind of hinting towards like an exponential increase, you might say, you know, when we're comparing the joules output. But wait, like, understand, did I really just compare a basic punch of 20% false 20% Toguro and post-Rose Miriam's Rage Blast? Look, I'm sorry if this hurts the idea of Hunter x Hunter's AP, but it really isn't, you know, with bad AP. Yu Hakusho just is extremely good in AP, but likewise terrible in DC. Here's the comparison between false 20% Toguro Punch and Miriam Rage Blast, because I am saying they are comparable in AP, absolutely am. If you took character X and had them stand perfectly still and just take both attacks without blocking, right? They just stand there. What I'm saying is that Toguro's fist would produce enough force within cubic centimeters volume to cause around the same amount of damage to his body where he's being hit as if hit by the Rage Blast. Here's where the AoE of the Rage Blast comes in, however. It would cover their entire body. See, this means if Toguro hit an arm and it blew it off, then they'd have one arm gone. But if hit by the Rage Blast, I mean, their entire body would be gone. But if we consider their durability such that they can effortlessly tank the power of a Toguro punch at false 20%, then heat aside, because I'm only talking about force here, you could expect that they would in fact tank the Rage Blast and be just fine. What about speed? If we compare Hunter x Hunter top end to Yu Hakusho, at Mach 30 to 60, we're looking at early Dark Tournament Hiei, given at Seiryu he was already around Mach 22, to mid-ish Dark Tournament levels for that Mach 30 to 60, and for combat speed, if we're trying to compare and match up to Netero's Mach 298 plus Budapesta, well, that's not Dark Tournament levels. For that, we'd have to take it as an unknown level of A-class level combat speed. Of course, I'm talking about minimums, no, like Suzaku's the speed of lightning already, just because we know how I am with this. I'm talking about guaranteed minimums. It's faster than the minimum for full power Toguro, and it's astronomically smaller than everything revolving S-Class starting with Sensui. I hope this begins to show the level of power Hunter x Hunter has at its upper end. In fact, even beyond the Chimera Ant arc, the Feats continue to support the level of power being weaker than Miriam, showing a great consistency throughout the verse. Miriam truly was king of the known world. And I can only hope that one day we can see Togashi actually flesh out the dark continent that awaits us, full of unknown power and a segue that could lead to explosive growth in AP and speed and everything else far beyond anything we've witnessed so far. That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did and you'd like to see more of this channel, consider subscribing and even reaching out in the comments. Hit me up. I will definitely respond and interact. I'll see you all later, and ciao.